A cold glass of water served by a naked Alicia Keys in the desert. That's how Kunitsu Gami feels like. This game reminds me of an early 2000 project Capcom would have done. More specifically, something made by Clover Studio that would eventually not sell well despite being well received. I know you may look at the art style and find it striking, but I want to talk about the gameplay first. When was the last time that you played a game that wasn't A. a looter shooter, B. a crafting game, C. a combination of all these in some kind of open world? This game happens to be a mixture of hack and slash and tower defense. Do most of you even know what a tower defense is? I've mentioned this in streams before, but I've known a generation of people who see the 7th gen as the best and as a classic because they've never really experienced anything else outside of it, on top of it being their first generation. The depth of the gameplay on offer here echoes the 6th gen. It doesn't simply stop there. The game also does a great job of ironing out kinks in the content. There's a lot of elements in the gameplay that could have been extremely annoying and have parts not fully been conceived. The game does a great job of implementing quality of life features. The best example rests in the main point of the game. You need to carve a path for the princess and wait for her to get to the designated end of the path. She moves very slowly, and while she makes her way down the path, you have to prepare. Sometimes you're done with your preparations and simply need to wait for her. That's when your Kagura dance comes into play. You use it not only to fight, but also fast forward time. This seems like a simple addition, but for such a weird mixture of genres, it would have been easy to forget about things like that when you're trying to make so many different systems work together. The second part of the gameplay resides in controlling the main character, who functions like any hero in a hack and slash. When you're not doing that, you're giving orders to different units and placing them on the field. While the game does a good job of guiding you through levels and bosses without holding your hand too much, it does hide too much information. Some of that information, more precisely new mechanics, could have been easily given to the player without overwhelming them. Some of those elements could have made the game feel less redundant and more efficient, like the ability to move all units at once. Without that, the early game can feel inefficient. Not that the early game is bad, it's addictive, engrossing even, in a way that no recent game has been in a while, save for Neon White or Doom Eternal. It's just disappointing when the game holds back things that could not even overwhelm the likes of Darkside Phil. The only thing that is overwhelming is the amount of resource you need to upgrade the characters. It seems sufficient at first, until you realize that the main character has multiple skill trees to unlock of his own. It's annoying that you spent so much time doing only the XXX and the YYY when there was a lot of work waiting for you. The late unlocks wouldn't be a problem if the title wasn't so stringent with said resources and allowed the player to have more earlier. Most characters, excluding are useless unless you get to the halfway point of their skill tree. Until then, they're a little more but a liability. After that point, however, they can carry themselves well. There's at least one level where you can only rely on your group to carry the mission. Now, onto another integral part of the game, the art style. I recently, of all things, saw a video on Jar Jar Binks made by Lemon. He made a great point. Lucas may have made a mistake with the Star Wars prequel, but he believed in the project. Jar Jar is a character that a committee would have never made because their process is too sterile and stiff. In that same vein, Kunitsu Gami is a game that has made a memorable and a very different art style, but the art enhances the gameplay. It's rare to have a game based more so on Shinto, Ghostwire Tokyo being a good example. The practice of Japanese purification and prayer is the basis for your combos through the Kagura dances. Honestly, the only part that was just okay was the music. It did its job, but the sound design is more memorable. May it be the creative and bizarre sounds of the monsters, or the menacing voices and chants that play before nightfall. The feeling of unease is built more through an eerie soundscape rather than memorable tunes, which is not a bad thing by itself. It's just that some games, such as Silent Hill, can do both. Not that it needs to, less is more sometimes. The only real disappointing thing with this title is how little people have played it. Yes, it's on Game Pass, and I'm sure a certain number of people played it through that, but as of writing, this game has a current player count of 318 and an all-time high of 2,038. I told you this game was like a Clover Studio title. It barely sold, and I expect the division in charge to be closed down. I'm not going to beg people to play it. I'm a small channel, at least for now, and I have no weight. This is probably another property that will be drowned in a sea of hero arena games, open worlds, and crafting games. People hardly complain now about their products. They literally consume product then move on to next product. At least in 10 years, I'll remember this game, and for me, and probably many others, it's already a cult classic.